Hashem.
How are you doing today, Rabbi? How are you?
Give me a smile. Okay. I'm okay.
I hope the world will be that easy to please.
The Alter Rebbe was interrogated. You may know the story. He was interrogation, and he was interrogated in the palace, facing all kinds of high government representatives, judges, and how government representatives. In those days, government representatives means people who are serving the Tsar. They're representatives of the Tsar. This is not, elected or appointed officials. These are people of the royalty. And one of the questions that they presented to the Alter Rebbe was why he writes in Tanya that by Goyim there is no good at all.
There is
No good at all. That was a difficult thing to answer, right? This question they brought up at the very end, after he answered all kinds of other questions. So the Alter Rebbe stood there, he didn't answer. He stood there, he looked around, and he had a little smile on his face. Looked around. The implication of the smile was, you really want me to answer? Do you really want me to answer? I'm being interrogated now for a long time, and I have answered every one of your questions satisfactorily. Do you really want me to get into this one? And they canceled the question. So a smile goes a long way.
I just read with Barnabas about during the concentration camp. They assembled a lot of, they were going to gas them in the chamber, the long chamber. And some of them started gas in the gas chamber. And so all the inmates joined in dancing, and the guards were saying, "What are you doing? Why are you dancing?" He said, "Because we're going to finally get out. We're going to finally get out of this world. We're going to finally get out of this torturous world." The guards were so infuriated, they threw all of those inmates out, and at that very moment, the United States Army came and started shelling the camp. And they were all released. They were all free.
So they really knew what to dance for. Where is David Babinet?
He left in the morning. Not in the morning.
He's not here today? Who else is missing? Anybody missing? Oshnei, I didn't see yesterday either.
Yeah, he was in college.
His sister's in town.
Who else has a sister in town? Maybe there is somebody. All right. Let's go. Okay. We have come to this is a few lines above the middle of the page on 167. at the end of the line, which begins with the word upnimiyusa. We have it at the very end of the line that says v'horotzei. We have been explaining, originally actually we're in the middle of defining two levels of Rotzain. Rotzain that is formed by Seichel, but it is above Midas. And this is what we painstakingly went through here to understand the union of this Rotzain. That it's a seichel, but it's still above midas. And as he explains, that this is where the difference between the rotzin and midas, or the seichel and midas, is that midas is based on personal experience, on personal satisfaction. Even if it is holy midas, but it's still the underlying power behind it is that he has a positive experience. And this is what the midas are held up or stand on. And then there is Rotzain, or the Seichel, that he wants exclusively for the purity and for the truth of what the Inyan is itself. Elokus, because it is Elokus. Mepeshehu Elokus. Not Elokus because it makes me feel good, but because Elokus for Elokus. These are the last words that we learned over there. Okay? But all this is, we're talking about the Rotzoin that is below Seichel, that is created by Seichel. And there are these two levels. Now we're going to the next stage. V'harotzoin shelamaylo mitam vadas. Okay, anybody has a place? The rotzoin that is above tam vadas, which means that it is the rotzoin that precedes seichel. Hu harotzoin ho'atzmi shel hanefesh. This refers to the rotzoin that is atzmi of the nefesh. Atzmi means that is part of the essence of the nefesh. And I'll come back and discuss this a little bit after we finish this sentence. Rotzoin ho'atzmi shel hanefesh. Sheroitze be'oir ein soy baruhu, that once oir ein soif, loy mitzad haseichel v'hahasogo, not because of seichel and hasogo and comprehension, not even, I should say, because we spoke before the rotzoin that is above midas, but there that rotzoin was based on seichel. This one is not even based on seichel. Mitzad ha-seichel v'ha-hasoga. Ki mitzad etzem hansham. Only mitzad etzem hanshama because of the etzem of the neshama. Now this is clearly a very difficult thing to identify because it's above seichel. How can you identify something that's above seichel? The way that we can relate to it and kind of define it and point to it is by understanding the rotzen that is apisech, that mitzad ha'hasoga. And then we can point that this is above hasoga. Now, the rotzen that mitzad ha'hasoga, as we explained before, that rotzen is also extremely pure rotzen. He wants it because of what it is, because of Lakus Mitzad Lakus, not because it makes him feel good. Like we said before, the Midas, there we had a clear distinction. So apparently, what we are being told here, that even the Seichel, HaSeichel v'HaSoga, that also is a qualifier. It's not entirely pure. Because we're saying that this is not the way it is, the truth of the nefesh itself. It is Mahatzad HaSeichel v'HaSoga. Right. That's right. So this is exactly what we see here, and I'm pointing out. So what is the difference? It is, as I'm saying. So that's why we have to put on our thinking caps and try to focus in and to understand what this is about.
Didn't you say also that the only way that the state can give birth to that thing is because that thing already exists in the thing, which is Mila Muhammad.
That's right. That's right. But okay, that is absolutely true. Except that it goes through the filter of Seichel, so it becomes more tangible as a result of the Seichel. The reason that it's attractive, the reason it's meaningful is because there is a real recognition even on a higher level.
This is what happens when we said at a certain point that the person he has a lot and he acts on it, and after a while the seichel is nostalgic from the Latzin. That there comes a while where he's no longer consciously engaged in thinking about it. And we say at that point it becomes like it goes back up to the Latzin, which is
Kabbalah
seichel. Like after we said, at that point it becomes more firm. It becomes like you said, the difference between the Ratzin is that the Ratzin is according to Seichel, so if you give a logical enough argument against it, you can convince a person away from it. But that which is above Seichel, so you can't convince someone not to do it. And when the Seichel is removed from the Ratzin, which is originally born from the Seichel, it becomes on that level that it was before it was brought down into the intellect.
It doesn't become on that level, but this is the only thing that's left, so to speak. That is, the seichel is removed, so the only thing that's left is the result of the seichel. So what we need to understand, as I said, to understand the rotzen atzmi we cannot, but to understand what's the limiting factor, what's missing in the rotzen shapitam v'das, api haseichel. Seichel v'asod. If we can identify that, then we can further say, aha, but there is really that which is essential, which is beyond that limit. One of the ways for us to get hold, to grasp the idea of seichel and focusing and understand the limits of seichel, so to speak. Because on the other hand, as we said, Seichel just tells me the truth. And I'm learning to the truth itself. Mitzad, because it's true, not because of my personal choices. Where do we see any limits in Seichel? We have defined truth over the course of our shiurim and so forth, that Elokus is the ultimate of truth. And how do we describe Elokus? That it is a truth, it is a presence that does not need to be present in order to be. You've heard this many times from me. It does not need to be made. It doesn't come from any place. It is an essential truth that cannot not be. That's the real truth. What is the definition of truth? Let's take a very, on a very common level. I tell you a story, and you're asking, is that the truth? I'll tell you the story. It's true, I told you the story. So what's your question whether it's true or not? The question is whether the story that I'm telling you pre-existed my telling it to you, or did it become a story when I told it to you? It's also true, I told it to you. But if it didn't exist before I told you, we don't call it true. Did I get you into a twister?
I didn't. I was writing a note.
Okay.
For this thing, and then suddenly I didn't get that.
While I'm repeating it to him, Moshe, do me a favor, want to refill this? You're doing a very good job at this. Thank you. I was saying, what is a simple meaning of truth in our common level? Right? If someone tells you a story, so he's telling it to you. At this moment, it's absolutely true that he told you the story, and you know the story. It exists at this level. But then you're asking him, is it true? What's your question? The question is not whether he told you the story. Of course he told you the story. You want to know whether the story pre-existed the tale. Whether it came into existence at the time when he tells you the story, or it pre-existed it. It really was there before. Now he tells it to you, so you know about it. But the real thing existed before. In itself. But that's the simple criterion of truth. Now the story which I'm telling you, even if it's true, also occurred at a certain point in time. Thank you very much. Also occurred at a certain point in time. And it's a question, should it have happened or should it not have happened? Why did it happen? What caused it to happen? You know what I'm saying? So this is all levels in truth. Okay. Like if you give tzedakah, a poor person comes in, you give him tzedakah. The act of giving tzedakah is a true act. No question about it. Whether this act pre-existed the act, which means that you really are happy to have given it to him, or you had to give it to him because it was a public situation and you had no choice but to give it to him. That goes back to a higher level of truth. You understand? So the ultimate truth is what we say is Elokus. Emes Hashem. Hashem, this is the Emes. Because this is the truth that never came into existence. Because it was never not in existence. Not only that it was never not in existence, but it could not have been out of existence. This is called, in the expression of the Chokrim, in Torah expression, it's called Mechuyav HaMetzius. Mechuyav HaMetzius means must. There is Efshori HaMetzius and Mechuyav HaMetzius. Efshori HaMetzius, everything in the world is Efshori HaMetzius. Efshori means it's possible for it to be. It exists because it's possible to be. But it's not a must that it should be. It could be or not be. Everything in the world is Efshori HaMetzius. This cup exists now, and it didn't have to exist a moment ago, and it can not exist in the next moment. There's nothing compelling about this cup that it should continue to exist the next moment. Every moment that it exists is just Efshori. It happens to exist. It happens to go, to be. And if not, then it's also possible. That's what Efshori HaMetzius. Alakus is Mechuyav HaMetzius. Mechuyav, huh? Ayid, the neshama, the neshama alakis is a mechuyav hamtzius, because neshama alakis is alakus. That's why it's a nitzchi. It cannot dissipate. This is called this is the infinite alakus, called mechuyav hamtzius. Another expression that's used, it's a little more involved. He is nimtza bebechina shaloi bebchinas metzius nimtza. Now, what's a metzius nimtza? A metzius nimtza means a presence that makes itself known. Now, this cup is here. It says, "I'm here." By virtue of the fact that it tells you, "I'm here," that makes it present. That makes it here. A Metzius Nimtzo has to have come into existence at some point in time. This is what makes it present, what makes it, so to speak, entry into the world of existence. Alakus is not Bibchinas Metzius Nimtzo. It's not an unidentifiable Metzius. And it does not exist by virtue of it being identifiable. It's not related to being identifiable. What's what the missing from the Holocaust? What? Shoheina Nimtzo. Shoheina Motzur. Yeah, the Rambam speaks about a different aspect. He's not talking about being from the Kuz. He's talking about Emunah, that everything comes from him. He's talking about everything else. Okay. Now, Seichel, the whole union of Seichel, is to tell us what's called the objective truth. Not like subject like the midas. I feel like this. So I feel like this. You can feel differently. It's not an absolute. It's an absolute truth. But Seichel is talking about an absolute truth. That's identified by Seichel. That's what the union from Seichel is. It's an objective. It's not. I have there is nothing that's compelling me to understand it one way or another except for the fact that it's true. Therefore it's the truth. But, and here's the important but to understand, it's a truth that comes into existence. Now with Seichel, can only relate and only comprehend and only understand something that could be and not be. And by virtue of the fact that it could not be, then I can identify what is. Just like normal seichel. Everything in seichel, we discussed this one time at great length, everything in seichel is something that a moment before I got to know it, I didn't know it. I did not know it. And the experience of getting to know it, that's the seichel, that's the hasod. Anything that I have always known, and I didn't have the experience of getting to know, is really not seichel. Because there is no hasod. There's no experience of how I grasp it and how I come to understand. Like I explained in the past, even in your days yet, right, how do you grab the table? Even though the table itself, what you use is the tabletop, but you can't grasp it on the tabletop. In order to grasp it, you have to go to a place where the table does not exist and say, oh, here it doesn't exist, here it exists. Now I can grasp it. Oh, this is a table. If not for this limit, that there's a place where it exists and a place where it doesn't exist, I could not identify what's a table. Therefore, in Seichel too, are you with me, Sharon? Huh? What? The whole thing I'm saying is very vague, and then you have vague of the vague. So, if you don't understand, please tell me. Okay. I'm pointing out that even though the Seichel tells you the truth, it tells you the truth that is true from a certain point on. It's true because I've identified it. It does not relate to a truth that is beyond identification.
Like truth in reference to the point of reference to that which is not truth is like the table where there's no table, so then you know where the table starts and you grab on. So where there's no longer any truth, so then you know where the truth begins and you can start to comprehend.
No longer any existence. Not true. And no, this presence, this thing doesn't exist. Then I can grasp it. But to understand this Indian from a level where there is no such thing as non-existence, Seichel has no place. And therefore, this is the limit of this Rotzen. The Rotzen that comes mitzad ha'soga, mitzad ha'seichel v'ha'soga, means that I have a criterion. What is it that I want? It's not Ein Sof. Ein Sof has no beginning, has no end. I can't step out of Ein Sof and then come to identify it and get an idea what it is that I want. This is talking about Seichel Anushi, and this is also Seichel Eliki also has that limit.
The natural piece is the clear Metzius. So how can the Seichel be able to grasp also the clear Metzius, something which has no beginning?
The Nefesh Elikis has Madregis. From the Etzem HaNefesh, then there is the Oineg and Rotzen of the Nefesh, then there is the Seichel of the Nefesh. They're all drawing from the Etzem HaNefesh, but they're coming up with different recognitions, in different aspects. The seichel cannot grasp the inyan of Mechuyah Mitzvahs. Because, as I said, the whole idea of seichel is to grasp. And grasp, you have to be able to be outside of it.
Isn't Ratzin Peinig in all of the Keifes expressions?
I'm sorry, again?
Isn't Ratzin Peinig in all of the Keifes expressions of the Nefesh on different levels?
Yes.
Like, Seichel is an expression of the Nefesh.
But at different levels. At different levels.
Fine, but how can you express?
In other words, at different levels means like this. That the Seichel of the Nefesh Elokis, if you tell the Seichel of the Nefesh Elokis, look, with money, you can buy ice cream. Isn't money a great thing? You wouldn't know what you're talking about. You understand? If you say with money you can buy a sefer, what's a sefer? I can know what you're talking about. So it's all part of Nefesh Elokis, but it's still at the seichel level. If you tell the Nefesh Elokis itself at the Oineg Rotzen level, say, there's such thing as money. Where are you coming from? What's money? I have whatever I want, I have. At the moment I want it. I'm in Holocaust. I don't need to acquire anything. The whole idea of acquisition already means that there's multiplicity. I don't know such thing. Huh? If you go higher, we're going to Rotzen and Noimek on the Nefesh.
But my question is that since that the seichel is an expression of the nefesh on the level of seichel, and the nefesh, etzimah nefesh, the nefesh Elokis, is this emes that we're speaking about. It is not preceded by. It has nothing preceding it. It's emes which is ein seif. So how can you express this emes which is ein seif on a level of limitation of seichel? How do you express?
You can't. You can't. The way it actually works, so to speak, is the nefesh Elokis in mislabesh in the nefesh asichis, in the guf ha'odam, and at this point he can only see world, and the nefesh Elokis influences, though in this understanding of what's valuable in the world, what's not valuable in the world. But actually, to experience in union from seichel, in union from ein seif is impossible. This is why it says that even a tzaddik gomer, oyev Hashem b'yahava b'ta'anugim, cannot reach the madrega of the neshama the way it was before the neshama came down in this world. Sorry?
They can have seichel in a manner.
L'mayla.
It's
it's a different kind of seichel.
Without this concept of hasava, we need to grab
Right.
what isn't.
That's what it's a different way. That's right. Hasog is a nefesh, the neshama, the way it is in Gan Eden is a completely different hasog. Yes.
How do you started with the example?
I'm sorry?
You started with the mashal of like when I say a story, we started like saying mashal. How would you apply this idea? Like I like the mashal so much, I want to know maybe how would I understand this idea in the mashal? Like the idea, or basically how can I clarify?
The idea is that anything that is processed by seichel, is identified by seichel, has a certain beginning, beyond which I don't know where it is. You understand? It has a certain beginning, it comes at a certain point. As true and as absolute the seichel is, it's not absolute at the level that it had no beginning. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know why it's there. It's beyond reason. No, Hasaga, he's within reason.
Was it an issue with the...
I'm sorry?
How do you believe that? I'm just trying to understand how the mashal fits. Like, what's the idea of the mashal in this? When you said that before the story, you ask if it's true, so the story is true, but you don't know.
So Seichel understands how the thing. We say Seichel understands the thing, so to speak, on an absolute level. But this absolute level is in Seichel understood in a relative and a limited fashion. Because it cannot relate to the absolute. Absolute, there's no way to grasp. Do you understand?
The absolute level in a limited fashion.
What?
We grasp the absolute level through Seichel in a limited fashion.
That's right. Yeah, because in order to grasp it, you have to identify it. And definition is already a limit. And the definition is a limit. And therefore, when we say that this seichel, that the rotzing is created by seichel, is based on seichel, there's a limit to this rotzing. There is an experience, not a midas experience, not an emotional experience, but an intellectual experience that makes me want it. I know what I want. I know why I want it. The seichel has presented it to me.
It's an emes that the seichel can grasp.
That's right.
It's still an emes, but it's not like it's a term like an emes atzmi, like an emes with.
Oh, that's it. Then there is the emes mitzad etzem hanefesh. Etzem hanefesh. There is absolutely no criterion there. Why do you want? What is it that you want? Can't even identify what is it that you want. Ain't so. This is the nefesh itself relates to Ein Sof. And there is no, you can't ask, why do you want this? What is it? What is in Ein Sof that you want? Define it. There is no such definition. There's no need for definition. Because this is truth, touching on truth. So this is what's called the Maila Mitamadas. Now we'll come, so to speak, to the center of this explanation. Seichel, as we've said, has a limit, which means that in Seichel there is a moment that I did not know this, I did not understand it. Now I came to understand it. I came to understand it because of the process of Seichel and insights and explanations and so forth. I came to understand it. But there was also a moment that I didn't understand. If there is a moment that that this thing is not known, if there's a moment that this thing does not, so to speak, is not present in my mind, that already said that this is not the absolute truth. Because the absolute truth cannot not be. But this was a moment where it wasn't there and now it's there. I could know it and not know it. So therefore this is not the emes lamita, the essential emes. Do I have you with me? I want to give you one more means of relating to this. generally speaking, in terms of our senses, also mentioned many times, in terms of our senses, seichel is represented by the sense of sight, and midas are represented by the sense of hearing.
Sense of what?
Hearing,
Hearing.
sound,
Not touch,
touch, everything. Touch, it's all on that same level. We're going to focus in on sight. And I explained many times that sight is in a category all by itself, way beyond all the other four senses. The other four senses, we sense, we relate to the object that we're sensing through our personal experience. I'm touching it, so I feel something. Or I smell, or I hear. There's a personal experience involved. In sight, there's no personal experience. I know this thing without touching it. Which means that I know this thing because it's true, not because I have a personal experience of it. Right? You with me, Moshe, right? I know because this thing is true. Explained many times this is not, okay? So therefore, as we pointed out many times, sight relates a person to the actual truth of the existence of the world. It isn't just something that he experiences, but it gives him, it presents the world to him as a presence in that truth. This is why sight is very enticing to the person, because it gives him a real world. Without sight, God forbid, there's no world, there's no real existence. Something that I touch, I also feel, and it's also real to me. I'm convinced it's there, but nowhere is near, even though this is something which touches me. When I see it, it's a completely different experience, totally different degree of knowledge. When I touch, I'm convinced that it's there, but I have a proof. How do I know it's there? Oh, I feel it. In other words, there is a process through which I get to know this. I don't know it directly. I know it through a process, like through a logical proof. In seichel, we're a logical proof. Indirectly or directly, but it's still a process. In sight, I know this not because I have proof that it is there. I know I have this thing itself. Why do I need proof when I don't have the thing? But I have the thing itself. Doesn't go through proof. And therefore, sight is convincing beyond any of the other senses. Even though this is at a distance, without touching it, this is by touching it, there's no comparison. No comparison. It tells me this is true, the world is true, absolute. Absolute.
Why is it
More convincing?
Why?
Because it does not come through through intermediaries. It does not come to me through some kind of a message. Like I said before, I tell you a story and you're asking me, is it true? Even though you believe me, but still, it came to you through some kind of a means. Touch is a means of getting to know the thing. Smell is a means. Taste is a means. Hearing is a means. I don't have the thing itself. The thing manifests to me, but the fact that it makes noise, and I hear it. But sight doesn't come to a means. I see the object itself. So then I know the truth of this as clearly as I know myself. I don't doubt my own existence. I don't doubt this existence of this. I cannot doubt my existence. I cannot doubt the existence of this subject. Because I've seen it. That's what sight is. And this is a marshal for Seichel versus Midas. When Midas is in law is a personal experience, Seichel tells you the reality. It shows you the union itself. Yet, sight also has its limits. The sight is also an experience, a different level of experience than touch, but it also has experience. Because in sight also, I can close my eyes and not see. Which means that when I see it, there's an active relationship between me and the object. This active relationship is called sight. Which means I know it not because I know it inherently. I know it because I'm looking at it. But if I didn't look at it, then I wouldn't know it. Which means, again, this is not the absolute knowledge. The absolute knowledge is that which I know with closed eyes. And I have to look at anything. That's why I explained that Shema Yisrael, we have to close our eyes. That's when we see the real truth. So even though sight is so clear and so convincing, not only convincing, beyond conviction, it's giving me the truth, but it's still giving me a worldly truth. A truth that has a definition, has a limit. That which the Neshama knows is beyond that. The Neshama knows a truth that you cannot not know. Not like sight, that if you want, you can turn away and not see. This is the Ratzon that we're going to talk about now. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry?
the fact that we can close our eyes and not see it implies the idea that the Seichel takes things from a beginning to an end, like there is an end to it. Like
There's a beginning.
There is a beginning, and when you close
Yeah,
your
of
eyes,
course. The main thing is that there's a beginning. So it's not something that cannot not be known.
But
Which is not the absolute truth.
so then what I don't understand is the
Anything that Rambam says, anything that exists, the primary, the first principle of Seichel is that anything that exists has to have a source. The Tzaddik says, there's the first being that brings everything into existence. Because if it exists, that means it has come into existence. And there has to be a first being that does not exist in that same form that needs to come into existence. That's the real Mitzvah.
We're saying that when we close our eyes, it implies that as real as it can be the relation to the world or to reality with our eyes open, the fact that we close our eyes and we don't see it implies that it's still has a limit.
Has a limit.
So if that already implies that there is a limit, how much more so the fact that as great as it is the fruit of the neshama, it's not revealed right now, which implies that there is some kind of limit to it.
No, but the truth of the neshama we know with closed eyes.
But we know it.
We know it. We cannot not know it. We may not be sensitive to it with our physical brain, or we are not aware of it because we are aware of other things. But in essence, yes, this is something which we cannot be oblivious to. This is why we say, if a person says, I don't believe in God, we know that he's lying. But he's not consciously lying. He doesn't know what he knows. He doesn't know himself.
You mentioned sight. Sight is above all the other senses, because we know it's higher in the head. What was the point that you were getting at by saying sight is that we can't view? What were you trying to point out by saying that sight is above hearing and touching and smelling and tasting?
It's more real.
It's more real.
It presents...
Seeing this piece of paper is more real than touching this paper?
Right.
How is that? If I close my eyes and I feel the paper, so I only have one aspect of...
Touching this piece of paper tells you that I'm touching it. It's real because I touch it. I feel it. It has to be real. I feel it. But seeing the piece of paper tells me that the piece of paper is there. Not because I touch it, not because I feel it. It's there. It itself is there.
You don't need an intermediary.
There's no intermediary.
Well, that's another question. If we see the Shema, we close our eyes because we want to go above that. We want to go above that in the intellect, right? So why is it the Shema? Why is it the word Shema Yisrael? Hearing.
Because
Why
ultimately,
going back down a level?
ultimately we have to understand that which we know at a deeper level than understanding. We have to shema, we have to explain and understand the union for Hashem Echad, that which we know beyond understanding. The truth that we know beyond understanding.
How is that implied by the word Shema?
Shema means understand. Shema means hear.
That implies understanding, not beyond understanding.
But Hashem Echad is beyond understanding. That's why Hashem Echad we close our eyes. Okay. This is what we learned here. He wants it not because he went through a process of understanding, which means he has a grasp of something, of some truth. But he doesn't even know what it is that he wants. This is the neshama. He wants ein inside the neshama. The he's born and those bills just going inside a little bit. Now he's born those bozem. The his born news that's related to this level of rotz. Because we have a cloud that everything in our experience in this world has to go through a process. If it does not come through a process, it just overwhelms us, and it's not a real thing. The hisbonenus is the process. Hisbonenus, we have to reflect. So if we come to this rotzen, to this higher rotzen, through hisbonenus, so that means that it's a seichel again. So he explains what the hisbonenus is. The hisbonenus that's related to this rotzen, vazehu, behafloas veroimemus ein soif bonu. The hisbonenus in this is a hisbonenus related to reflecting the hafloa veroimemus. The hafloa means the wonder, the supreme quality, supreme aspect. And Reimumus means also an aspect of supremacy, of Ein Sof. The point that he's explaining in the Aflos for Reimus Ein Sof. Aflos for Reimus Ein Sof. When we come to understand the Lakus from a worldly perspective, from where we are normally, from Seichel, we're not talking about the quality, what is Ein Sof, what is a Lakus. What we come to say, what we come to understand is that everything that exists was created. And we see that our world is a creation of the Medrash. That's our hisbonenus. Hashem echad, and that the whole world is bottled, and the real being is the creator, like we said before. Yeah. So this inyan is not talking about what Ein Sof is, what Hashem is. He's talking about what our world is. And our world is really Elokus, really bottled to Elokus. This is how the hisbonenus that's at Pitan that we can grasp in our Sodanava. Because the world is real mitzvahs, and through the world we understand how the world is bottled to Elokus. When we say that he has a hisbonenus in hafloas v'roimumus Ein Sof, that already means that he is already above world. He's not even relating to world. Because world is not talking about the hafloas v'roimumus. A world is talking about the mitzvahs of the world, the limited koyach, the ability to create. Hafloas v'roimumus is talking about Ein Sof, the Lakus, the way Lakus is unto itself, not related to world. That means that at this point, and that hisbonenus is at this point, one is not limited by world, and he can delve into thinking in what the Lakus itself is. Forget about where the world comes from. The world is insignificant. What is a Lakus? And his misboinen, a Lakus, is limitless. The flow of Reimus is completely above any mitzvahs. So he says that this hisbonenus in the hafloas v'roimumus ein soif bonu hu rak lo'oirer hu ahava v'harotz. That hisbonenus is only in order to affect the oire, to awaken, to arouse, to touch this avaros, not to create it, like we said before in Tam Vadas, or the Seichel creates the Rotz. He, the seichel, the hisbonus, does not create the ratzon. The hisbonus only, once you think about Haflos V'Reimus and Yisod, that awakens the neshama, and the neshama relates to this. When you're thinking about worldly things, the neshama cannot relate to it. Can't relate to it. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not real to me. The minute you start thinking in terms of Haflos V'Reimus and Yisod, the neshama wakes up. Says, "Oh, now you're talking. Now I know what you're talking about." That's me. Oire the rotzen hanefesh.
When the way this is accomplished is through a person trying to explain a concept that actually he's not able to grasp.
That's right. There's no grasp to it. Haflos V'Reimus, there's no grasp.
So is it because when he's not able to grasp it and he realizes the immensity of what it is that he's tried to understand from this, or kind of there's born this the oven here to that? Not because he's able to grab it, because he's not able to grab it, so then it arouses the
Yes. I mean, in a certain sense that is true, but again, that is a little bit of a simplification of the inyan of laws within Muslim Yisrael. Essentially, that comes after one understands extremely clearly and purely the inyan of the world being anamitzias, the beetle of the world. How the world is bottled, Hashem Echad, and the entire existence is bottled in this Ardus Alaki. And then he is drawn to be misboinen. What is this Alakus? In other words, otherwise, one principle in his bonus is that you have to be within reality, within your reality. Everyone has his own reality. One can imagine Haflos V'Reimus. It's nothing. It's mamish nothing. To imagine the Lakus is not a Lakus. It is when you go through and go through the entire seichel process, and you reach the point where, in your seichel, when you see clearly how the world is bottled to a Lakus, then he can be misboinen in the Lakus itself, because the world no longer interferes with your seichel. So then, Haflos V'Reimus Lakus becomes a reality to your seichel.
Although we just said that's not possible because it's ungrasped.
It's not within grasp, but it's real. Just like the one motion that we have for it that is distant, but nevertheless, you can see the sky. You see it. Can you tell me what you see? Can you translate it? Can you report on what you've seen? We can only say it's one experience, one sight. That's the only thing you can say. And yes, indeed, there is no real grasp in it. But by thinking about it, it touches and arouses the nefesh, and the nefesh wakes up to it. Because the nefesh really can relate. But in our physical state, our brain has no means, is not a vessel for Haflos V'Reimus and Yisod, because our brain can only understand that which can be expressed in Mokim Uzman, in some kind of a finite form, and this is not finite.
Yeah, but the muscle, you can't explain what you see when you see the sky, but you can explain the Derech Shlila. I mean, you can say, I know what it's not. I know what I didn't see. But even when we talk about this level, it seems like we're not. Even that would be on. You can't say when you're talking about the emes of elikus and we're playing on that. You can't say b'derech chlila. I know it's not. There's no. I mean, where?
Yes, you can. It's not limited by world. It's not. It's not a presence. It's not a presence. It exists and it's not present.
You could say that, I mean, if you understand deeply the idea that the world is created through the speech of God and all this, how nullified it is.
Well,
if you understand, like following the line of now, if you understand how low the world is compared to God, like, it's not, I don't know if it's called Derek Shrila, but what true understanding is how great the world is in our eyes, and yet how nothing it is, we can have a little like idea of, like, to imagine the wonderfulness of God. Like, if everything that we contemplate on in the
yeah,
world
but this is indirect. This is indirect. We're talking about to actually relate to a Lukus, to Ein Yisrael. It's a different thing. It's true. Indirect, we can have a lot of proof, indicators. It's true. There's no question about it.
So the only way to get to see anything about that is when you completely cover the previous will of only if you achieve the first fraction, which is at this cycle, you can even imagine getting to this idea.
That's right. Otherwise, as you said, imagination is not sacred.
So it's not only two doctrines, it's a process. It's not like there is this and this, but first it has to be this one and then this.
In the process of revelation, first has to be Rosh Haptam V'das, and then you can maybe touch the higher ones. But in the nefesh, it's there all the time. Okay.
Right, is this something like sorry? Is this something like the difference in thinking that I don't know where it says that there is a love that comes to God through seeing the evolution of God, how great the sun and this and that, the world. And then there is a love that is beyond the need, that is not because God is imploded in the sun and in this and that, but like tzaddikim, that they don't see the mashal, they see the thing itself. They don't see this would be the same idea, no? Like they see the great.
There are general criterion and then there are specifics. Yes.
I understand the difference why we say Shema Yisrael as opposed to say the A Yisrael when we say Shema. The idea of that Shema is understanding, right? And the Vaya Fad is beyond that. That means you have to basically just try to bring what's beyond understanding as best we can into understanding. We say Shema.
You have to be misboine. Shema, you have to be misboine in the principle of Hashem. That the entire existence of what Shabbos, as we learned, is bottled in Elokus. The real truth is the Elokus, not the Vok Shabbos.
So why didn't you say the A?
Why?
Why not say the A? The A Yisrael.
Because in practical terms, for the person, it's important that he understand. And A is a wonderful thing, but it remains distant from him. In order to absorb it and translate it, like we spoke yesterday, in action, it has to be understood.
More concerning which is
A makif. You can't understand. You can't understand the essence itself, but you can understand the truth of it. That everything is both in it. That's what we learn in this course. The beetle of the world, you can understand. The beetle of the world.
I didn't want to interrupt more or less the same idea, but the part I didn't get, when you started saying the mashal at the beginning, about that you said that I tell you a story and then you said it is true, and then you ask if it really happened, which is another truth. I never saw how this, what you were trying to prove from this to what was explained. That's what I didn't get. This part, I didn't get the connection.
The story, as I tell you, is like the thing is coming into being. The story that preceded that telling you is the way the Indian is in truth, the way it preceded my telling you.
So the truth is when it happened, not when I told you. Even it's true that I told you.
That's right.
The same thing. The Seichel tells you the truth, but it tells you the truth, but not when it happened, not as a
It tells you, when it's happened.
Right.
Sharon, you okay? What? You want to talk with me a little bit? Moshe, is it important what you have to talk about? If not, yeah, I'll talk with you.
I mean,
Sharon is very limited. He only asks very seldom. With you, we have more often talks.
Yeah, but I mean,
Where should we turn, Sharon? Okay,
it's
come.
not essential.
Okay.